My mother excluded me from her wedding because her boyfriend couldn't stand to see me. But when the big day came and none of her 4 kids showed up, she ended up getting married in front of strangers and now blames us for ruining her perfect marriage. I'm 18 years old, just finished high school a few months ago, and I still can't believe my own mother did this to me. I mean, I know relationships between mothers and daughters can be complicated, but what happened literally destroyed me in a way I didn't think was possible. I guess I should start from the beginning so it makes sense. Because the truth is, this had been building for years. I was just too blind or too hopeful to see it. My parents divorced when I was like 6 years old, and it wasn't a pretty divorce. You know, one of those where everyone stays friends and the kids happily go from one house to another. It was ugly, with fights and lawyers and all the drama you can imagine. My mom, Melissa, always made it clear that my dad was the villain of the story. And honestly, when you're that young, you believe everything your mom tells you, right? So, I grew up thinking my dad was the bad guy, and my mom was the victim, who had suffered so much. I have 3 younger brothers. Cole is 16, Henry is 14, and the youngest is 11, and they're all my mom's kids with my dad too, so we were all in the same situation of going back and forth between the 2 houses. The thing is, I always felt like my mom treated me different from my brothers. I don't know how to explain it exactly, but it was like she was more affectionate with them, more patient, more everything. With me, she was always more distant, more critical. Like everything I did disappointed her or bothered her somehow. But well, I told myself it was normal, that maybe it was because I was the oldest or because I was a girl or I don't know. I made up excuses to justify why my own mother didn't seem to connect with me like she did with my brothers. Like 2 years ago, my mom met Patrick. He's like 45 years old. He's an accountant or something, and from the beginning, something about him gave me a bad vibe. It wasn't anything specific at first, just that weird feeling you get when someone looks at you a certain way or talks to you with that tone that you know isn't genuine. But my mom was super excited about him, like happier than I'd seen her in years. And I thought maybe he was good for her. That maybe she'd finally found someone who made her happy, and that would make things better at home. But instead of getting better, everything got worse. Patrick started spending more and more time at my mom's house, and every time I was there, I felt like an intruder in my own home. He made weird comments, like he'd ask me why I spent so much time in my room, or why I didn't go out more with friends, as if it was his business, or as if I had to justify my existence in my own mother's house. And the worst part is my mom never defended me, never said anything when he made those comments. She just stayed quiet or changed the subject. Last year, they got engaged. Melissa was super excited, planning the wedding and talking about it all the time, and I honestly tried to be happy for her because at the end of the day, she's my mom and you want your mom to be happy, right? She talked about the wedding colors, the venue, the food, everything, and I assumed that obviously I was going to be there, that I was going to be part of all that because I'm her daughter, her only daughter. It never crossed my mind that it could be different. It was in March of this year when everything exploded. I was at my mom's house. It was a Friday afternoon, and she was in the kitchen talking on the phone with someone about the last details of the wedding. The wedding was planned for June, like in 3 months, and I was in the living room doing homework, but I could hear the conversation. She was talking about the guest list and the seating and all those things, and at one point she said something like Patrick wanted to keep the ceremony intimate, just close family and important friends. I didn't pay much attention because, well, I'm close family. I'm her daughter. Obviously, that included me. But that night during dinner, it was just the 2 of us at home because my brothers were with my dad that week, and my mom told me she needed to talk to me about something important. The tone of her voice already made me nervous. You know, that tone parents use when they're going to tell you something they know you won't like. I put down my fork and looked at her, and she started with this whole speech about how the wedding was going to be a very special day for her and Patrick, that they had decided to keep it small and intimate, only the people who really mattered. And then she dropped it. And she told me Patrick wasn't comfortable with me at the wedding because I reminded him too much of my dad. She said it was my face, my way of talking, everything. That basically I was a copy of my dad, and that caused Patrick discomfort, and that he had specifically asked that I not be at the ceremony. She told me just like that, super casual, as if she was telling me we were changing cereal brands or something equally insignificant. I couldn't believe it. I literally sat there trying to process what I had just heard. I asked her if she was serious, if she was really telling me I wasn't invited to her wedding because her boyfriend didn't want to see me there. and she just shrugged and said she hoped I would understand. That it was important to her that Patrick felt comfortable on his own special day, and that I had to respect that. My blood was boiling. I told her how could she ask me to respect something like that? That it was her wedding. But it was also a decision that was basically telling me her new husband was more important than her own daughter. And she got angry, told me I was being dramatic and selfish, that everything always had to be about me and my feelings, and that for once I could think about what she needed instead of making everything about me. But wait, because it gets worse. My birthday is June 15th, and the wedding was planned for June 14th. My mom had promised months ago that I were going to do something special for my birthday, like a small party or a dinner or something, and I was excited because generally my mom doesn't do much for my birthday. But that same night, after telling me I wasn't invited to the wedding, she also told me they had changed plans and were going on their honeymoon right after the wedding, and they were going to be away for 2 weeks, which meant there wasn't going to be any birthday celebration. I mean, can you believe it? Not only was she excluding me from her wedding, but she was also canceling the plans we had for my birthday, my 18th birthday that was supposed to be special, to go on a honeymoon with a guy who couldn't even stand being in the same room as me. I told her that was incredibly hurtful, that I couldn't believe she was doing this, and she just said I was an adult now and needed to learn not to be so sensitive about these things. I went to my room crying that night. I called my dad and told him everything, and he was furious. He told me to get out of there, to pack my things and come to his house, but I told him no, and that I still had to try to fix things with my mom, because at the end of the day, she's my mom and I didn't want to give up on that relationship without fighting for it. But over the next few weeks, things got worse and worse in that house. Patrick was there all the time now, like he already officially lived there even though they weren't married yet. And every time I entered a room where he was, the atmosphere got super tense. He didn't even greet me, just ignored me or made passive-aggressive comments about how I was always in a bad mood or how I needed to grow up and stop being so childish about the wedding. And my mom never defended me. She just let him say whatever he wanted and I had to put up with it or go to my room. One day in mid-April, like a month after the initial conversation, I was in the kitchen with my mom. My brothers were in their rooms doing who knows what, and Patrick wasn't there. He had gone out to do some shopping or something. I thought it was the perfect moment to try to really talk to her, without him there influencing the conversation. I sat with her at the kitchen table and asked her directly why we had never had a close relationship, why she had always treated me different from my brothers. And that's when everything came out. I told her I had noticed since I was little that something was wrong, that she had never hugged me like she hugged my brothers, that she had never told me she loved me or was proud of me, that she had always been distant and cold with me. I asked her if it was because I reminded her of my dad, if she hated me for looking like him, and she was quiet for a long moment that felt like an eternity. Finally, she said it wasn't my fault. But yes, it was difficult for her because I was just like my dad in many ways. She said every time she saw me, it reminded her of all the pain he had caused her, although I knew that story had two sides, and she wasn't the saint she pretended to be. I told her that wasn't fair, that I wasn't my dad, that I was my own person and I deserved for her to see me as her daughter and not as an extension of her ex-husband. She started crying and saying I didn't understand how hard it had been for her, and right at that moment, Patrick arrived. He heard my mom crying and immediately assumed it was my fault. He came into the kitchen yelling about how dare I bother my mom when she was so stressed with the wedding preparations, and I tried to explain to him that we were just talking, but he didn't want to listen. He literally told me to get out of the house, to pack my things and leave because I wasn't welcome there. I looked at my mom waiting for her to say something, to defend me, to tell him to calm down and that he couldn't kick me out of my own house like that. But she said nothing. She just sat there crying and said absolutely nothing, while this guy kicked me out of a house. So I went up to my room, packed what I could in 2 suitcases and a backpack, and left. I called my dad to come get me, and when he arrived and saw what was happening, he almost went in to confront Patrick, but I told him no, that I just wanted to get out of there. That was the last time I was at my mom's house. I officially moved in with my dad, and from that day, everything changed. My brothers found out what had happened because I told them when they came to visit my dad that week. Cole, the 6-year-old, got super angry. He had always been the most observant of all of us, and he told me he had also noticed how Mom treated me differently, that I wasn't crazy for thinking that. Henry, the 4-year-old, was confused and sad because he didn't want the family to split up more than it already was. The wedding was approaching, and I was honestly trying to get on with my life. I was applying to colleges, spending time with my friends, working part-time at Starbucks to save money, basically doing everything possible not to think about the fact that my mom was about to get married and I wouldn't even be there. But then something unexpected happened that made everything even more dramatic. Cole called my mom like 2 weeks before the wedding and told her he wasn't going either. He told her that if I wasn't welcome at the wedding for looking like Dad, then he didn't want to be there either because he also looked like Dad. We all looked like Dad in one way or another. My mom went hysterical, according to what Cole told me later. She begged him to reconsider, that he couldn't do this to her, that she needed her children to be there on her special day. And then Henry also said he wasn't going. He's the most sensitive of all, the one who always tries to keep the peace. But even he was tired of seeing how Mom treated me. He said he didn't feel right celebrating something when his older sister had been excluded so cruelly. And then, surprisingly, even the youngest decided he didn't want to go. I think he didn't fully understand the whole situation, but he knew his older brothers were taking a stand and wanted to support us. My mom called me furious. She yelled that I had ruined her wedding, that I had manipulated my brothers against her, that I was selfish and malicious and was destroying her happiness just because I was jealous of her new relationship. I told her I hadn't manipulated anyone, that my brothers made their own decisions based on how she had treated me my whole life. But she didn't want to hear any of that. She basically blamed me for everything and hung up on me. The following days were super stressful. My mom called my brothers constantly, trying to convince them to change their minds. Patrick also called them, telling them they were being disrespectful and that they were going to regret missing this important moment. But my brothers stood firm. Cole especially was very clear with Mom. He told her this wasn't just about the wedding, that it was about a pattern of behavior he had observed for years, how she always put me down, how she never defended me, how she had basically replaced me with Patrick. My mom tried one last desperate thing. Like a week before the wedding, she showed up at my dad's house. I was in my room when I heard the doorbell, and when my dad opened the door, there she was. She asked to talk to me, and my dad asked me if I wanted to see her. Honestly, I didn't want to. But I also knew that if I didn't talk to her, this was going to go on and on. So I went downstairs. She tried to do what I guess she thought was an apology. She said she was sorry things had gotten out of control, that she didn't want our relationship to be like this, that she loved me, and I would always be her daughter. But she didn't say anything about the wedding. Didn't say Patrick was wrong. Didn't say she had made a mistake by excluding me. She just wanted everything to go back to the way it was before. As if nothing had happened, and for my brothers to go to the wedding, I asked her directly if Patrick and she had reconsidered and if I was now invited to the wedding. There was a long silence, and then she said the guest list was already finalized and it would be very complicated to make changes now. I mean, basically she was telling me no, that I still wasn't welcome, but she wanted me to somehow tell my brothers to go anyway. I told her I wasn't going to do that if she wasn't willing to acknowledge that what she had done was wrong, then we had nothing more to talk about. She started crying again, doing the whole dramatic scene, and my dad asked her to leave. She left yelling that I was going to regret this, that I was destroying our family and that someday I would understand what I had done to her. After she left, my dad sat with me and asked me how I was. And the truth is, I didn't know how I was. Part of me was devastated because my mom had just confirmed that she really was choosing Patrick over me, that my presence at her wedding was less important than keeping her boyfriend comfortable. But another part of me felt this weird clarity, like I was finally seeing the situation for what it really was, and not for what I wanted it to be. A few days later, Patrick sent me a message. I don't even know how he got my number. Probably my mom gave it to him. The message said I needed to apologize to my mom for ruining her wedding and that if I really loved her, I would convince my brothers to attend. He said I was being immature and vindictive, and it was time for me to grow up and act like an adult. I blocked him immediately. I wasn't going to waste my time or energy responding to that guy. But I sent a screenshot of the message to my dad and my brothers so they could see what kind of person Patrick was and how he thought he had the right to interfere in our family like that. In one last desperate attempt, my mom asked my dad to come to the wedding. Yeah. You read that. Right. She asked her ex-husband to come watch her marry another guy, basically to keep up appearances that everything was fine with the family. My dad obviously told her no, that there was no way he was going to validate with his presence a wedding that specifically excluded his daughter. And so came June 14th, my mom's wedding day. I spent the day with my dad and my brothers. We went to eat at a nice restaurant, watched movies at home, basically had our own family event without my mom and without Patrick. It was weird, I'm not going to lie, because part of me kept thinking about my mom getting married at that moment without any of her children present. I wondered how she felt, if she was sad, if she regretted her decisions, or if she was so caught up in her bubble with Patrick that she didn't even care. The next day was my birthday. My dad made me a special breakfast, my brothers gave me gifts, and some friends came over in the afternoon to celebrate. It was nice, honestly. But there, it was also that background sadness, that my mom wasn't there, that she hadn't even called or sent me a message to congratulate me. Like a week after the wedding, I got a message from a number I didn't recognize. It was a photo from the wedding. My mom and Patrick smiling on their big day. They looked happy, surrounded by friends and family, but none of their 4 children were in the photo. I don't know who sent it to me or why. If it was my mom trying to show me what I missed or some relative who thought I'd want to see it, but I deleted it immediately. It's been like 4 months since the wedding. My mom and I haven't talked this whole time. She hasn't made any real effort to fix things, hasn't admitted she was wrong, hasn't apologized for anything that happened. My brothers aren't talking to her much either. They go occasionally because the custody agreement technically still stands for the minors, but the visits are tense and brief, and everyone prefers to be at my dad's house. I'm starting college next semester. I'm going to study psychology, which is ironic considering all this family drama. But I think precisely because of all this, I'm interested in better understanding how family relationships work and why people do the things they do. I'm excited to start this new stage of my life, to get out of all this drama and focus on my future. Do I regret how I handled things? Honestly, no. I know my mom probably tells everyone I ruined her wedding, that I manipulated my brothers, that I'm a terrible daughter, and maybe there are people who believe her. I don't know. But I know the truth. My brothers know the truth. And my dad knows the truth. And that's enough for me. You can't force someone to love you the way you need to be loved, and you can't keep begging someone to see you when they've clearly decided to look at you as if you were invisible. Sometimes I wonder if someday my mom will realize what she did. If she'll wake up one day and understand that she traded her children for a guy who couldn't even stand to see her daughter because she reminded him of her ex. I wonder if she'll regret it, or if she'll keep living in her world where she's the victim and I'm the villain. Honestly, I don't know if I care anymore. What I do know is I deserve a mother who fights for me, who defends me, who loves me without conditions and without having to choose between her daughter and her partner. And if my mom can't be that person, then maybe it's time to accept that the mother-daughter relationship I always wanted to have with her just isn't going to exist. And that hurts. It hurts so much, but it's better to accept that reality than to keep chasing something that's never going to be. My brothers told me recently they're proud of me for standing firm, for not letting mom manipulate us again like she had done so many times before. Cole told me, I taught him it's okay to set boundaries even with your family, that love doesn't mean putting up with anything, and I guess that's the only good thing that came out of all this. That my brothers and I are closer than ever, and we all learned that sometimes the family you choose is more important than the family you got by blood.